Hi and welcome to this tutorial on tabletop pose. Tabletop pose is a popular pose you'll see in everything from an easy to a hard class. In my experience, it can be used as a rest place. You can use it to mobilize the spine, as in through cat and cow posture, or as a stability posture. So today we're going to look at it as a stability posture because often what people do is that they will have some weakness in their shoulder girdle. And when we speak of shoulder girdle, it means the pectoralis muscles, the whole front chest muscles, the shoulder blade muscles that come and wrap around the arm, as well as the ones that go into the spine. And that results in them hanging their spine or hyperextending, almost bending backwards in their arms, as well as maybe having some stiffness up in the neck or the postural muscles, and then overdoing it with their wrists, because the wrists themselves are not inherently, if you look at your wrists, they're not inherently very bulky. They don't have a lot of muscles. In fact, the muscles of the wrists are the muscles of the elbow in the forearm muscles, and they have more of a guide wire anatomy over and above them. So it's really important when we're positioning our wrists not to be stiff in the wrists and to have our alignments so that we engage the upper back. Same thing with the low back and the lower hips area. When we have the pelvis, we want the pelvis, thinking of it as a bowl, to be nice and level as opposed to being caved forward or tilted forward, which might bring a lordosis to the back. Or an arch. We all naturally have a nice arch, but some of us exaggerate it more than others. Or tilted underneath too much, which is what I see a lot of, because the hamstrings or the muscles behind the thigh are connect up into the bones there as well as into the knees, and we will see the pelvis therefore get pulled and tucked under when really there's an issue in the shortness of these muscles behind the thigh. So in tabletop pose, we really can just work on some of the fascia or the covering of the muscles just by positioning ourselves. So we want to start with nice starfish hands. Sometimes to the kids, I say, think of it like the sun shining out. To the adults, light shining out. And we want to have the positioning of the wrists, see if we even have enough bend in our wrists to have our elbows straight. And if we do not, then I suggest you give yourself a nice wedge or roll up a towel or put a step down with nice folded smooth blankets so that your wrists end up being a little bit higher than your fingers. The fingers would be off the edge of your mat or off of that wedge. This is too wide, of course, but we're creating something like this so that you are bringing the floor up to that inability of your wrists to really bend back. So take a look at that and see if you have some movement. And then play with that through your shoulders. Have your shoulder blades and your upper back move and see if you can play with getting a little bit more movement, turning your hands in and out. Okay. The bottom's going to be easy because most people sit in a chair, so they have enough mobility through their hips. But if you did not, then we would make a modification in a similar way. A lot of times what I'll do is roll up a towel and have them have it underneath the knees so that we can angle the lower legs a little bit differently, or make what we call a moment, or using physics to sort of create a force to have the body angle itself a little bit out of a lordosis or out of a posterior pelvic tilt more to neutral. But we're not going to get into that here today. That would be for something further. It's all whole thing on itself. So let's try to get into that pose of tabletop. So the hands are wide. I'm going to zoom back a little bit so that you can see that. Okay. They're underneath the shoulders, though. If your shoulders are a little stiff, you can turn your hands outwards about no more than 45 degrees. And when I'm talking about angles, I'm talking about the index first fingers versus the alignment of your body. And you're going to have the hips, again, not too much in that arching forward, that bowl kind of spilling everything out the front or back. Okay, you want to be a nice neutral, which would mean the spine is pretty flat. your head is also going to go into this. So you're going to tuck your chin and imagine that there's a string pulling your crown of your head forward and then pulling your tailbone back. That's a nice visual to work with. The legs as well, right underneath the hips. Most people I see in class are putting their legs together a little bit too much. I rarely see them going too wide, but again, if there's some soft tissue or your body, a lot of times my pregnancy moms, they may feel like they need to do that. So you're going to try to come up and in as much as possible, but don't force it. That might be your ability to stabilize, and it really is more important right now that we get through the spine flat. Okay, in tabletop pose, we push straight down into the floor with the tops of our legs, meaning from the knee down. So if you have stiff ankles, you might have to put something underneath. And out of our shoulder blades, out of the level of our heart, not our neck. A lot of people will shorten up and go right into their neck. You want to keep those shoulder blades down and back. You might even want to bend your elbows a little bit to see if you can feel that. Sometimes there's some stiffness. And then from there, letting your spine be straight out the back and the front. And that's tabletop pose. Thanks for watching.